Okay, so I'm Jonathan. I work with Canoe Insurance. I am based in New Brunswick, so I was hired by Canoe to handle the Maritimes. We uh, we came into the Maritimes in 2024, so I was hired, I think, a month after they launched in New Brunswick. So the program has been in New Brunswick for 2 years. We have currently 8 municipalities that have signed up. And then every day I'm getting poked to, look at this or that or consider quoting another municipality. So we're starting to gain traction as far as the brand. And I think the reputation's been out there with the 8 members we have on the service levels and the types of unique programs we offer. So today I thought I would share kind of what some of our key differences are as an insurer, because Canoe is not a typical traditional insurance company, and we do things a little differently. So, first thing on the slide you'll notice, as I mentioned, we're not for profit. So, Canoe Insurance does not have shareholders. We do not charge commissions to pay a broker. We are not for profit. We're almost like a risk sharing pool mechanism, so that all of the members of the insurance program are municipalities. We do not insure commercial or personal. We focus exclusively on municipalities. So I think that's one key distinction. You can get your standard array of coverages just as you would through a broker. So we provide liability insurance up to 50 million, depending on the size of your municipality. I have seen in PEI some of the smaller villages are, using 5 million. And we go up in steps of 5 million. So you can go 5 million, 10 million, 15, all the way up to 50. And we call those layers of liability. So beyond the first 5 million, you're up to another layer and then another layer. And those get progressively less expensive because the chance of something happening beyond 5 million becomes very, very, very minute. So the premiums are quite reasonable. We do property insurance, so your buildings, contents, rental income. If you rent out some of your municipal buildings to groups, we do business interruption. If something happened to the building that put it out of commission for a while and then you lose those rents, then there's a business interruption component. We have bond and crime for that's generally employee dishonesty type events with fraud and all that kind of wire transfer stuff. We have terrorism coverage in the liability and on the property. I forgot to mention back on the cyber here, we include cyber security liability in our liability program. Some of the insurers are not covering that, or they're selling it as a separate coverage. Boiler and machinery is for any of your equipment that breaks down and causes a loss. So, your arena ice making plants or any other equipment that breaks down that then generates a loss of some sort. We do automobile fleets. So if you've got vehicles for your parks and recreation or public works vehicles, heavy equipment, so plows and trucks and all that kind of heavy stuff, bulldozers. We can do aviation as well if you've got a small airstrip. And some of these products, by the way, aren't ours. We own the base ones, and then the other ones we in fact will broker out to a in-house broker that we have. So aviation, we have a special program through a broker, and we get good rates on aviation liability. We also have an optional environmental liability program. We've got the UAV insurance, which is optional for those of you that use drones in your municipal operations. We have special events liability. We actually have a portal, and it's optional to use, and it costs no money for the municipality to use. But let's say you have a wedding and they're booking a community hall or ice time that you rent to a gentleman's beer league. If you want to push the liability for their event off onto them, they can go into a portal. We give you a link for your municipality, and they can find the facilities. They can book the schedule. They can say what the ice time is, whether or not there's alcohol. or for a wedding, how many people are coming, whether or not there's alcohol. And it will provide them a temporary liability certificate for the duration of the event and send that electronically to you at the municipality, and they get a copy, and then they can pay the premium with a credit card or through PayPal. So it's all self-administered by the third party who rents, but you get a guarantee that they've got the insurance on it. So it's a way to push the risk off to the renter instead of the municipality handling it on their own. And again, you don't have to use it. It's optional. Some municipalities provide the space as a courtesy and don't want to charge an insurance premium for it, or they charge a small rental fee, and other municipalities push that off and make them buy a certificate. And the other thing about those certificates is you can, if you had a reoccurring weekly event where someone's coming in every week, they can program that in there, and it charges them like a flat fee for 4 or 5 consecutive events. So it's really easy to use and it's very convenient to use. We provide legal expense insurance to defend you against any any lawsuits that come against the municipality. We have our own legal team, so we are responsible to defend you in the event of a claim against a municipality. So we have a legal team, and we provide this coverage that gives money towards court costs and all those kinds of things. We also provide an optional counselor. They put counselor here, but it's mayor and counselor. So you can buy an optional coverage to cover your mayor and counselor while they're in the course of their duties, or you can buy it for a 24-hour period so that it covers them at all times. And there's 2 different price points for that on a per person basis. We also have volunteer accident coverage. So if you've got community volunteers doing good deeds for the community, you can put a blanket coverage. I think it's about $200 a year that covers any number of volunteers for that flat fee up to the age of 80 years old. So a 79-year-old volunteer gets injured while volunteering for the municipality, that will cover them for some bodily injury and, medical benefits and that kind of stuff. And I'll go on to the next one. If there's any questions, I can't see them, but speak up and I'll stop as we go. And I'll also have some at the end. So one thing that we do a little differently is Canoe Insurance is a risk management company as well. So we don't just sell a policy. We're going to be actively engaged in the municipal functioning throughout the year. We have a number of services that I put here that I have a vehicle and I'm certified to come and do some of these inspections. So one of the first ones that do not cost you anything is playground inspections. I am CPSI, that's the Canadian Playground Safety Institute. They certify us on the current CSA standard for playground equipment. So we can come and do annual inspections and give you a report with photos to show here's a couple deficiencies in your equipment that you could put a focus on to remedy or fix or have a crew go out and repair. So I'm actually doing a bunch of those tomorrow for some New Brunswick municipalities. And the really interesting thing is you'd be surprised at some of the breaches of the CSA standard that are existing out there, especially older playgrounds that haven't been updated in a decade or so. So there's a lot that can be learned from those inspections, and we don't go and shut you down or say you can't have insurance anymore. We give you the report and say, here are the deficiencies. This swing set needs to be repaired. This distance isn't far enough clearance from the slide or whatever it may be. And you can focus on remedying it within council minutes or a budget to plan for a fix to it at some point in time. We hire at our own cost a third-party building engineer. So there's a number of companies around Canada that provide this service. We will hire one that will come in and evaluate your infrastructure, your buildings, to determine whether they're valued correctly for insurance. So that's at no cost. So we've already done that in New Brunswick. He came around last summer and, looked at arenas. He looks at ice making plants. He'll look at everything from water treatment plants to your sheds and your park infrastructure and, gazebos and, small things to big things he'll look at and look at. He's got a system that will tell him current labor, current suppliers in the PEI in New Brunswick market. Like he'll look at local suppliers and determine what the cost would be to rebuild something. So we use his report in calculating what your building valuation should be. We provide ongoing risk advice. So on a day-to-day basis, I get questions from municipalities asking about events they're planning to have, like could be a parade, it could be a balloon festival, could be a petting zoo, you name it. A lot of municipalities are getting very creative in what they're offering to attract people to the municipality. So a lot of times those ideas are run by us. We can give them mitigation advice on how to run it safely. And we have a lot of bulletins. I have a repertoire of bulletins, anything from running a municipal campground to running outdoor rinks to running bouncy castle events, parades, you name it, water, docks, swimming beaches, all that kind of stuff. We've got modules on each one that we can share with you. And oftentimes there'll be a new idea that we haven't even thought of before. So we benefit from all of the municipalities we have in our membership because somebody somewhere has already done it or tried to do it, and we get the feedback. So we keep that in a repertoire of bulletins. We have an annual Risk Pro conference. It just happened last week, 2 weeks ago. It typically has been in Alberta, where our home base is. But now that we're growing in the East Coast, we are planning to do one in the Maritimes in 2027. So any of our municipal members that come to our Risk Pro conference and participate in the conference, attend the sessions, we give you a little bit of a homework assignment to take home, and it's usually very easy, simple, something to get you thinking about risk. And once that's completed, we will rebate 2% of your premium. And we like that premium to be used for some type of upgrade or improvement to the safety of your municipality. We do risk control inspections. Those would be me or a member of my team. And we would come in and look through the buildings, not to determine the value like the engineer would. We're looking at things like fire exits, storage rooms, fire hazards, water damage, just general safety and maintenance of the building. And again, we have an online report that we can fill out with pictures and send you back just to give you an idea on anything we've noticed that, could be a potential hazard going down the road. I mentioned the risk bulletins. We issue those at a regular interval to address trends and common concerns in municipal risk. So we've done one recently, like I said, on municipal campgrounds. We did one on housekeeping, your policies. And then we're working on one right now for outdoor fields, like how to make sure your outdoor fields are safe for use, your sports fields. And any number of topics, outdoor arenas, like I said, there's dozens and dozens of these bulletins. We can do coverage reviews, so we can come in and sit with your key people in the municipality and review the insurance coverage, the major coverages, so everybody understands how they work and what they're for. We can do additional named insured sessions, which I will address in another slide. We also do third-party contract reviews. So if you've got a potential contract with a supplier, maybe a developer, maybe a third party looking to do business with the municipality, we can take the contract that they've supplied you or the proposed contract, review it, and give you advice on any clauses that are problematic that could cause you issues on the liability side down the road. There can be a tendency for some of them to try to push the responsibility onto the municipality, and we can give you suggestions on reworded clauses that keep you safe from that eventuality. We also do claims experience analysis. So once you've been a member for a couple of years and we've seen some claims come through, we will start analyzing what those claims are and why they happened, and try to figure out if there's a way to prevent them from happening in the future. We do a post-claim loss report. So we'll take a random claim that has happened and go through it and provide a report on how long it took us to close the claim, if there are any issues, delays along the way, just kind of like a post-mortem on how well the claim went and what we could do better in the future. We also do peer comparisons. So a member that's been with us for 5 years, we will start comparing your loss history against the loss history of a similar sized municipality, just to show you where you rank in a grouping of your same size. And it sounds scary, but it's one of the most favorite things that municipalities have told us they like us giving them, because we give it out to them at the Risk Pro conference, confidentially. There's reports generated and they're given them confidentially, but then they end up comparing notes with each other. Like, how did you do? What ranking did you get? And that's broken down by liability and auto and property. So you see how you rank in each of those three categories against your peers. So we have a lot of fun with that. And it just kind of shows you how well you're doing versus other members in the pool. Now, I mentioned additional named insured. So this is unique. I don't believe the broker products can do this. So if you have an organization in your municipality that provides beneficial services to your residents, so these are things like clubs and organizations, community service clubs. I've got a picture of a curling club here. We've got golf clubs on there. We've got recreational associations that own their own arenas, arts and culture organizations. If these are good benefits to your municipality and they have their own elected board and they have their own financials that are audited yearly, and the municipality by vote of council deems them beneficial, you can have them added to your own municipal policy. And we call it an additional named insured. So we can insure their buildings and their liabilities under the municipal policy with the same rates we provide to the municipality. And we would provide them the same risk management services, inspections. Some of these clubs will have playgrounds if they're, service clubs that have a daycare on site, and we will give them the same benefit as the municipality. So that's usually something that they have to go out and get their own insurance for. But if you have a good relationship with them and you're willing to take the risk on, you can add them to yours through this additional named insured program. I mentioned the Risk Pro. We host this annually. It's been a 2-day conference. It's been in Alberta. Our head office is in Alberta. The majority of our members are in Alberta, so it's historically been there. We are, as we grow in the Maritimes, going to be bringing it to New Brunswick or PEI. It just happened 2 weeks ago. We usually have seminars with expert speakers who provide information on the latest trends. So I think this year we had a law firm discussing wrongful dismissal. We had someone discussing cybersecurity trends. We usually every year have some type of climate related seminar. So this year it was wildfire. We've had flood before. But this year was a lot on Fire Smart. And I know PEI, you have a Fire Smart website. So it's compared to the Alberta and BC Fire Smart programs, New Brunswick and PEI we're just kind of getting into it. We're not at the same level of scrutiny that the Fire Smart programs provide in the West, but I'm on top of it here in New Brunswick, and I've looked at the PEI site, and they're very similar in what we offer in the Maritimes so far. So we've learned a lot about wildfire in Alberta, obviously, because we have a number of municipalities that are at risk of wildfire. So we're actively managing our knowledge and understanding of the weather patterns and the forest conditions and all that kind of stuff. We have had fleet management seminars. We even had a storm chaser. So if you've seen the movie Twister, last year we had a gentleman who is a storm chaser who has developed technology to track whether or not a twister will touch ground. He understands the humidity and the wind directions and the geography of regions, and he can tell you if storm conditions are likely going to have a twister touchdown. So he was there with some of his technology and his his gadgetry that he has launched up into the sky, and he even brought his armor plated Jeep that he uses to protect himself from the large hailstones, because he'll go to a storm, he'll press a button, and 6 anchors go down into the ground underneath his Jeep and anchor him down so he doesn't get blown around. And he'll study that in the eye of the storm. So this guy, to me, uh, was one of my most favorite ones to watch, because it was so cutting edge what he's doing, and he's trying to bring that knowledge more to the forefront of insurance and risk mitigation. So it's stuff like that we do for 2 days. As I mentioned before, you come to the conference, you do some of the homework we give you, and then we issue the 2% rebate. The picture I've shown is from this year. You can see that it's a casino night. So we have a reputation of hosting the best themed hospitality events every year. For anyone that's been to a canoe hospitality event, that's what we're told, is the people love them. So this was casino. Last year we did Nashville. So it was a country theme with themed drinks and food and games. It's funny that we did a casino this year inside of a casino. So we were at a casino hotel doing a fake casino. And it was packed and a lot of fun. Some of the history. So to give you a background, Canoe Insurance is a brand name that we're using outside of Alberta on the insurance side, because the parent company is called RMA Insurance, which is Rural Municipalities of Alberta. And Rural Municipalities of Alberta is the oldest reciprocal insurer in Canada, the oldest municipal reciprocal in Canada. And all of the reciprocals for municipalities right now exist in the West. So BC has one, Saskatchewan has one, Alberta has 2. So we have a competitor in Alberta, but we're bigger than them. And the board of directors decided that to expand the reach of RMA, they would come to the Maritimes. So New Brunswick was first, PEI is second. And we couldn't call it Rural Municipalities of Alberta. So they went with the Canoe brand that mirrors our Canoe procurement brand and our Canoe benefits brand. And so that's kind of the history. So it was originally formed in 1955 under the name of Jubilee Insurance. And over the years, it evolved. So in 85, we formed our own reciprocal on the property. In 2002, we formed our own reciprocal on the liability portion. And that was in response to increasing rates and stricter policy conditions imposed upon municipalities. And they grouped together and started building their own insurance operations. So that's kind of how we've evolved. In 2023, that's when we came 2024 is when we came to New Brunswick. So 2023 was the year they decided to come east. So we are the only municipal reciprocal in the East Coast in the Maritimes. What is a reciprocal? I use that word a few times. So you've probably heard of a mutual or a pool or a co-op. It's a similar kind of a concept where like-minded organizations with similar risks and similar constraints pool their resources together. And these are common in Canada right now for airports. So the airports have a reciprocal, the hospitals have a reciprocal, legal providers have a reciprocal. The poultry industry and the egg industry have a reciprocal. The hospitals, I mentioned before, healthcare providers, there's a reciprocal. So it's groups of people who have similar constraints and similar needs in insurance. So municipalities are a common model for reciprocals. As I mentioned before, they exist in the West. So BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and now they're in NB, and now we're in NB and PEI. We are owned by our membership. As I mentioned before, there are no shareholders. So the membership owns the company. We have a board of elected municipal members, including a maritime seat, that make decisions on company operations and rates and all kinds of things like that. So the board meets annually to look at the losses, determine the rates. We have had both rate increase and rate decrease in my 3 years. We've had increase on property, but a decrease on auto. And the rates historically have never increased more than 10%. So last year we had an 8% overall increase in the Maritimes. The year before was 2. So they work hard to keep the rates stable, and we'll borrow money from our reserves to put down onto to defeat the cost of increases to keep them stable. We provide our risk management service at no additional cost, and our function really is a public purpose, not a profit margin. So we use the term member. You're not a client, or you're not an insured, you're a member. Our staff will call you by your first name, you're a member, and we partner. So my job, before Canoe, I've been in insurance since the year 2000. So for 25 years, I worked for insurance companies, different ones, where you were always a customer or an insured, and you were never kind of part of the team. Like there was always a definite line in the sand between the insurer and the client. With Canoe, I'm finding, as I've grown with the culture and with my teammates in Alberta, they work hand in hand with the Minnesota. So we're kind of an extension of your staff, providing that risk mitigation expertise and that insurance expertise on a day-to-day basis. It's not see you in 12 months with your new renewal. We'll be talking to you throughout the year and inviting you to things and doing webinars, and I will visit and do inspections. So we're very hands-on and very member-focused. How do we protect ourselves? So you'll get a lot of feedback from our competitors on how, there's dangers in dealing with the reciprocal. If they lose money, you're going to get assessed a levy. If we have too many claims, we could go bankrupt or come back and assess a share of our outstanding amounts on your municipality. We don't do that. We are currently sitting at over 400% in our solvency requirements that are legislated by provincial governments. The company has a long-term, midterm goal of getting to 500% so that we're totally confident we have enough there to handle anything that could happen. We have no shareholders, so I mentioned before the rates are determined by a board of elected municipal representatives, and we keep them stable within 10% every year. We use global insurers to provide our access liability that are beyond our comfort level. So our first level of liability of 5 million, we own that. We're responsible for claims within that. But as soon as anything exceeds the 5 million, we've got layers of global insurances companies that back us up. So you've heard of Lloyd's of London. There's Merkel. There's a number of big global insurers based out of Europe who do this worldwide, and we fall upon them if anything happens that gets out of our comfort zone. We've also set on our auto and property loss thresholds and aggregates so that if losses in a particular year exceed or break the threshold or the aggregate, we transfer that over to the global reinsurer. So we protect the reciprocal portion and bounce everything outside of it that is could potentially harm us financially. So we protect our financial interests in the reciprocal with these mechanisms. We also invest in risk prevention and mitigation efforts. So when we talk about birds of a feather stick together, municipal risks are very unique. There's a lot of liability exposure with the municipality. So we work very hard to prevent things from happening to you and mitigate when they do happen to protect our insurable assets. And one example I'm going to give you in this picture is in Alberta. The town of Jasper is one of our members. And as you know, Jasper had a wildfire that wiped out a lot of the town, was it a couple of years ago? We have a contract with a private firefighting company called WDS that were based out of Montana, just across the border. And within 4 hours, they were on site and sprayed all of our municipal buildings with this fire retardant gel that you see in the picture. Their crews also created fire barriers around our buildings. They cleaned leaves out of troughs, took propane tanks away. Any brush and debris was removed. So we hire them to do that for us in that province, and it protected our assets. We lost no buildings in Jasper. We lost no building assets. We ended up losing a couple of pieces of heavy equipment, which didn't hurt the reciprocal. So we invested money to save our buildings in Jasper. So stuff like that is coming this way. The company WDS is expanding to the east. They're looking at Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, in particular right now. I think they're going to come down through Maine. They've opened an office in Alberta, so they have one in the area of our headquarters in Edmonton. And I talked to the gentleman because they had a booth at the Risk Pro event 2 weeks ago, and he showed me on the map all their locations, and they're coming east in the next few years. They're planning to establish here so that we can use them as well. So we're on the kind of the cutting edge of municipal risk protection. We're looking at ways to prevent any fire. We're looking at water losses, floods and things like that, and staying abreast of the the current learnings and teachings that the experts are finding through the government and through universities. This slide is a couple of years old, but if you look at the rate comparison, we still are affected. Like, nobody can control the climate or the weather. So both the private industry and our reciprocal are affected, but the way we price and the way we have membership timeframes, we are able to kind of offset the swings in the rate so that our swings are less noticeable throughout the policy years. So this is just an example of up until 2023 what it was. So this is trended downward a little bit since then. The brokers have come down a little bit. In the Maritimes, we've been competitive. We've saved money for municipalities, so the brokers are starting to respond with better rates as well. So this is changing as we speak. Claims management. So if you do have a claim, we have an internal claims team. We have a claims examiner. We will assign the claim to a local independent adjuster in your area. Right now, we're using Claims Pro. I believe they have some locations on the island as well. But we're not married to Claims Pro. We can use whoever we want. So we will use a local adjuster. If there's one you've used in the past that you like, let me know. Because we can assign a claim to any adjuster in the area who will come out and look at the loss and provide reports to us that we will then kind of oversee from head office. We have a claims assist group. So anything that comes in that you think might be a claim, but you're not sure, or it's under your deductible, or it's just a weird situation, you can call me and run it through me. I used to be a claims adjuster before. So a lot of the common slip and fall, vehicle accidents, building losses, stuff like that, I've seen all before, and can provide you advice on whether or not you should claim it, or how do you get around it, or is it even your responsibility? A lot of times municipalities will be blamed for things that's not legally their responsibility, especially sewer backups and water damage and things like that, trips and falls, slips in the winter time, stuff like that can often be defended on your behalf without making a claim. So we do that, and there's anything under this category does not show up on your record as a claim. We will also use local tradespeople. So if there's rebuilding work to be done or body shops required, we will use your local vendors in the area. I mentioned before, we provide post-loss reports. So we'll analyze the start and finish of a claim to see how long it took. Were there any breakdowns in communication? Were supplies limited and caused delays? All kinds of things we can find from that process. And the loss trending analysis I mentioned, something we do once you've been a member for a number, 3 to 5 years, when we start having enough work to trend with. When you're a new member, there's not a lot of losses to do any trending on. They're all kind of one-offs. But after a while, then you can start seeing patterns. I mentioned other Canoe businesses that are dedicated to municipalities. So you've probably all heard of Canoe Procurement because they're all over Canada. It's funny, I make this joke often that we have the three businesses, but not every business is in every province. Canoe Procurement is. So you can procure services and products through Canoe Procurement at bulk buying discounts that we provide through that platform. I think some of you may have used it before. We have staples on there. We have heavy equipment on there. We have fire trucks on there. all kinds of things. So it's picking up in the East, and the awareness of that program is out there a lot more than it was 2 years ago. Canoe Benefits, I think we've toured around the island. Colin from Benefits has been there. I think he's been over a couple of times and he's been talking actively to a lot of CAOs. And they provide your staff benefits and medical dental plans and things like that. This picture is our headquarters. I don't know if you've noticed, I'm wearing blue plaid. This is a standard issue canoe uniform. Blue plaid. These are all my colleagues in blue plaid. And that headquarters is an extension on our old building in Nisku, which is the airport area of Edmonton. So that new building houses some offices and conference spaces for the staff there. The staff you see in the picture are both, there's insurance people, there's procurement people, our legal teams are there, our advocacy teams are there, management. I'm trying to think if I've forgotten any. Marketing, we have a marketing department. So that's all the folks from the head office. I think there's 70 to 100 people in the company. So we're not a big national insurer like an Intact or any of the big insurers. We have a very small overhead because this is the only building we have. And there's a lot of us on the insurance benefits and procurement that are working remotely from their homes. So I work out of Moncton. Some of the procurement people are out of Ontario. We've got people in Calgary working from home. And then the folks in Edmonton all travel into this office. The funny thing that I think you will appreciate in PEI is when you walk into this office, they've got old farm machinery on display just to kind of pay heritage to their farm origins, because RMA started out helping farmers fight the rats off out of their silos to prevent spoilage of anything in the silos. So there's an old tractor in there and some old farm equipment. And because of Canoe being in the Maritimes, they now have a canoe shaped. They've taken an old canoe and made a chandelier that hangs in the lobby, a big blue canoe. So they've got a canoe in there and some old farm equipment. And when you walk in, it's like, what kind of a museum is this? But they've done a good job. There's even a book from New Brunswick that someone gave them when they were here on the history of cedar canoe building in New Brunswick. So they've got that on their table in the lobby to pay homage to their Eastern people. And that's about it. So I don't mind taking questions. I know I covered a lot in a short period of time.